right? So people made mistakes, and there was a lot of shit going down that made those mistakes amplified and amplified those mistakes, right? So that's painful stuff. That's horrible stuff. That was difficult, lonely stuff. You should not have had a childhood where the best you could hope for was to not bother people. That's tragic. You didn't have a voice. You weren't listened to. Your thoughts and feelings weren't explored. You didn't have intimacy. You didn't have connection. You were scant on love. You didn't even have cuddles, for God's sakes. Everywhere I sit, my daughter is on my lap. Like I don't know. I could be on a horse and she's like right there. Kids are very right, very cuddly.
And I remember that, really wanting that, and I guess that's.
Yeah, we physically hunger for that. Kids who don't get that, not you. I mean, you got some of it, but kids who don't get that at all, they die.
Right.
I mean, it is necessary for the survival and life of a child, right? So you needed all of these things, and you deserved them, and all of that. And let me tell you something.
Mm-hmm.
About disagreeableness. Mike, if you can look up that study that we had recently about this, I'll just mention it briefly, and then you can just read the beginning about the psychologist. I posted on Facebook about the psychologist who did the study, the Milgram's type study. So there's a psychologist who did a study on Milgram's experiment is from the 60s, a couple of months after the beginning of the Eichmann trial, a Nazi trial. And he tried to figure out why people just obeyed orders and killed people in Nazi Germany. And so he did this experiment where he said, you're going to be participating in a learning experiment. And he basically told people to apply ever-increasing electrical shocks to people they thought they were really shocking, but it was actually just actors. A significant portion of people went all the way to where it's openly said fatal dose on the dial, just because people were telling them to. And this has been replicated all over the world in various cultures with pretty similar results all the way around. And there is one type of person who will not do it, though.
Mm-hmm.
There is one type of person who is the least likely to kill on command for no reason in a non-war situation, in a lab, in a psych experiment. There's one type of person who will not do it, most likely, and that type of person is the disagreeable person.
Right.
Right? Disagreeableness is the basis of ethics. Because, you don't need ethics to go along with the crowd. Let's go burn the witch. Who's with me? Whoa, we're all with me. You don't need ethics for any of that shit, right? You need the ethics to stand in front of the witch and say, you psychos.
Yeah, that's how I started feeling since I started listening to you, is all of a sudden I care less socially, like with my friends, about disagreeing, but I guess professionally I'm still. Like I've barely been out in the last couple of weeks because I just feel like everyone's a zombie out there, and I'd much rather talk to, people on FDR or just listen to you and, learn.
So wait, are you saying that since you listen to the show, you have an unfuck list of 0?
I have an unfuck list of 1.
1? Oh, well, that's good. I don't even want to know what the rate was beforehand, but all right. I'm not saying you were a conveyor belt or anything, but
I was in a 10-year relationship, and that was the 4th person I'd ever slept with. And in the last 3 years, I ended that relationship, and so I added some numbers to that. Anyway,
a couple of notches in the old lipstick case.
But I definitely would have added less had I. I feel like I was leading them on. Maybe we were just kind of snuggling, which I feel like now I was literally just, maybe because I didn't have enough snuggles when I was little. I don't know. It's weird for a guy.
No, I get it. You've got unmet childhood needs, and you're using your sex appeal to try and get those needs met by adult men who had nothing to do with your unmet childhood needs. It's a little unfair, but I can certainly understand it. All right.
And then
let me just read this. Sorry, go ahead.
And then I tease them when I don't have sex with them, but then every once in a while I do. And either way, I kind of feel bad for teasing them, and then I feel terrible because I really didn't mean to have sex with them, and so I'd like to unfuck them. Right.
Yeah, well, don't have sex with any guy because he accuses you of teasing. They're big boys; they can handle themselves, literally. So, anyway, so this guy said, this was just published in the Journal of Personality. Those who are described as agreeable, conscientious personalities are more likely to follow orders and deliver electric shocks that they believe can harm innocent people, while more contrarian, less agreeable personalities are more likely to refuse to hurt others. For an 8-month period, the researchers interviewed the study participants to gauge their social personality as well as their personal history and political leanings. When they matched this data to the participants' behavior during the experiment, a distinct pattern emerged. People who were normally friendly followed orders because they didn't want to upset others, while those who were described as unfriendly stuck up for themselves. So the writer of the article said, the irony that a personality disposition normally seen as antisocial, disagreeableness, may actually be linked to pro-social behavior. It's so ironic. It's not, well, not to a philosopher, it's not, but to these people, it's quite surprising. This connection seems to arise from a willingness to sacrifice one's popularity a bit to act in a moral and just way towards other people, animals, or the environment at large. Perhaps in the end, popularity in the end may be more a sign of social graces and perhaps a desire to fit in than any kind of moral superiority, right? So I think that is, join the ranks of the good, be annoying. Join the ranks of the virtuous, be disagreeable, save human lives.
I've started
be
since I've listened to
frustrating to people. Yeah, and be frustrating to your clients, and those who can't handle the frustration, who are looking, if people want to eat shit, don't invite them to your good restaurant, right? I mean, and this is the case, like, I constantly want people to leave this conversation, like, not right now, right? But I want people to go away. I do. I want people who are like, oh, that's terrible. I can't believe you said, Maleficent's not about this. I can't believe you look so deep into Frozen. It's just a children's film. It's like, well, you need to sit at the children's table then, and you need to not sit here with the adults, because farting, making armpit noises with your hands, and throwing your tapioca at people is not helping the adults have an intelligent conversation. So you need to go and sit at the children's table and not sit up here with the big people. And this is a constant process, kicking people out of this show, banning them from the message board, banning them on YouTube is a constant process. It's really important. It's really important to get people away who can't handle the conversation. I don't want those people getting in the way of people who are having adult conversations. It doesn't have anything to do with disagreeing with me whatsoever. People can agree with me and be a douchebag. I'll ban them too. Right? And they can disagree with me and not be a douchebag. And it's like, hey, fantastic. You get first on the call-in show. But, the douchebag eject button, I mean, my thumb is red. Right. Again, I don't spend a lot of time doing it. It's pretty easy to do. But getting people out is so important. If you can identify the people who are dying to pee at your pool party in your pool, hey, don't let them in, because they're just making everything kind of warm and uncomfortable for everyone else, right? So recognize that to be disagreeable is to be responsible, right? Our responsibility is to reality. Because without being responsible to reality, we can't connect with anyone. Trying to connect with people at the expense of reality is desperately harmful to everyone involved, as you know, right, fundamentally and deep down. And the reasons why you do it, and the reasons why we're all tempted to do it, is because it threatens the very fragile pseudo bonds we had as children, right?
So since I've been disagreeing with my dad much more recently since listening to you and starting with my clients a little bit more too, you're saying I need to just keep practicing that. And
well, you got to deal with the loss. I mean, you had a pretty shitty childhood, right? In a lot of ways, and it's also an annoying the shitty childhood because it's not even like and then my stepfather set fire to me, and all that kind of stuff, right?
Right. I mean, my dad married some pretty. I had two stepmoms that were pretty crazy, and my current one's not.
Oh, are you saying like Russian stepmoms? I think I've read about some of those in fairy tales, and if memory serves me right, you probably were set on fire a few times. So, but you had and there's not a lot of feeling, right, in your explication or your description of your childhood, right?
I was thinking today, I really don't, I have very few memories, very vivid ones, the ones that I do have, but it's very kind of, my dad's barely in any of them. And my brother's there in some of them. But I remember asserting myself for the first time in my life when I took piano. I was still there in Russia, and the lady used to hit my fingers, and I quit. One day, after months and months of just hating her, hating going there, I just mustered enough courage to go home and not go to piano lessons. And my brother was like, home, was taking care of me, asked me why I didn't go. And I told him I'm never going back there. And I really can't believe I was that young, and I stood up for myself. And I remember when she called, he told her I was never coming back, and that was it. I quit piano. I can't play piano at all anymore. It's like I shut it out of my brain. I just don't even know how to read music when I used to be able to. But I remember thinking about that, and I don't even remember my dad at all asking me about it or acknowledging it. I really don't remember him in that memory whatsoever. And I remember texting my brother earlier, asking if he remembered. He hasn't replied yet, but it just dawned on me, like, my dad's not in any of my memories. I guess it's not his fault. He was on his own, but I guess
What
that's.
do you mean it's not his fault? What do you mean it's not his fault? I mean, how the hell do you know? You don't even remember. See, this is what I mean. Be humble. You don't know. Maybe it was his fault. I mean, look, if he was kidnapped and locked in someone's basement for 5 years, then yeah, it was not his fault. But how do you know?
I guess I don't.
Right. So this is what I mean. Feelings arise from uncertainty. Like, as soon as we're certain, we have no feelings fundamentally about that stuff. As soon as feelings arrive from ambivalence and uncertainty and so on, right? So as soon as you've got an answer, you've just cut your feelings right off, which is why, and not you, right? But why people who are emotionally primitive are always so certain about everything. And why idiots are certain about everything. Again, I'm not putting you in that category, but I'm just saying in this particular instance, you just gave me a solid answer. Wasn't his fault.
No, you're right.
Based on what? You just told me you don't remember much about anything. But it wasn't his fault. It's like, well, I don't know. You don't remember, right?
Based on having to work and stand in bread lines, I don't know. I really don't remember.
No. Come on, Marina. Look, if I had to work and stand in bread lines, I would make extra effort to connect with my daughter.
Yeah.
Or I'd bring her with me to a bread line so that we could talk. No, seriously. Other than the sort of random kidnapping or conscription or whatever, the idea that there was no possible way for my father to spend time connecting with me is that's not. Come on. That you don't know that.
No, you're right. I had no idea.
Especially if he married these stepmoms who were not great, right?
Yeah.
So, your feelings will come out if you stop bludgeoning them with absolutes that you can't verify. Be curious. Be curious. I don't know. Look, I don't know the answer, but be curious with your feelings and don't just say, well, it was like this, right? I mean, that's primitive black and white thinking that is not going to get you where you want to get to in life. If you want to be the best at your profession, if you want to be a really great person who's not living this pinball-like reaction to stress all the time,
yeah,
you have to allow yourself the complexity of ambiguity and doubt, right? Like, let me give you sort of a tiny example. It's a big example for me, but it's like, so when I was 11 or 12, my mom went to Germany. I went to a friend of mine's grandparents that I didn't know, and my brother went to England to stay with our relatives.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how, 20 years ago. My sister-in-law says, we were talking about this for some reason. My sister-in-law says, well, why didn't you go to England with your brother? It kind of makes sense, right? I mean, why was I stuck with some friend of mine's grandparents who I didn't even know, while my brother went to stay with aunts and uncles who I spent a lot of my childhood with?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I'd have said, because of X, right? But, I was about to say, well, because, and I'm like, well, you know what? I don't actually know why. And that was the beginning of a pretty big journey towards the sort of heart of my family. But our feelings are there to guide us. And if we never think we're lost, then we don't get any instructions, right? I mean, I don't pull out a map when I've got a GPS, right?
Right.
And if you have answers, your emotions will not give you curiosity. They will not activate and give you guidance. And then everything will be reactionary after the fact and usually panic driven. But if you have I don't knows, then your emotions fill that vacuum. They rush to fill in and to examine and try and explore, which is why humility is really the beginning of wisdom. And again, I don't mean to say you're not wise or anything like that, but it really struck me in that particular instance. And you know, when you listen to this back, which I hope you will, you'll see that I think pretty clearly that that was just, well, obviously it wasn't his fault at all, right? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I've found myself crying to many of your podcasts with listeners that I didn't think their situation related to me at all. And then you say something or they say something and it triggers and I'm like, why am I feeling emotional right now? And so that's kind of what I just kind of figured out by listening to your podcast. But
And how have you felt through this conversation?
Much better than I expected, actually. I was freaking nervous and I didn't even really know where I was going with this because it's totally different than my original question. And I guess it's not even a question. It's just girly world of tangents.
It's the rabbit warren of infinite possibilities. And I respect women for that. I mean, I think if I spent about 8 or 9 seconds in a woman's brain, I would go, like, I'd have to institutionalize and hit with horse tranquilizers in the eyeballs or something. Because, I mean, I'm amazed at what women can do intellectually.
Well, no.
I really genuinely am. I think it's fantastic. I think it would drive me completely mental. But I do think it's a fantastic strength for a lot of things.
What you do is like food for my brain because it's actually, I find it, you do sometimes go on, I don't want to say tangents, but you're just colorful. I don't know, the way you explain things, it's not as basic as a lot of people and I like it. I think it's more why girls are more attracted to you now that they're finding you and your wisdom.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. That's very, very kind to hear. And yeah, I mean, somebody's described Frida May Ray's philosophy as performance art, which I think is actually quite honest and true in a lot of ways, which I think is but I'll do anything to keep people engaged in a conversation about truth and history and what matters and what can change people for the better. If I've got to do ridiculous, goofy things like talking about the world running on a ball-bearing set of male testicles, fine. If that keeps people engaged and entertained to the point where they'll, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down and all, I think that's great. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that is, I'm not quite sure we had that, that emotional whatever that sometimes happens with people, if there's anything that's missing?
I don't know. I don't know how, I guess I'm still unclear on how to, the avoidance that and the procrastination I do. And sometimes it's stuff like doing my taxes or, it's not like a disappointment of other people's. I just seem to have really learned to procrastinate and avoid things that are painful or difficult. And I don't know how to break it. You know what I mean? I mean, besides disappointing people, just avoiding things that are difficult. I don't know how to, like, I heard something recently about procrastination, one of your podcasts about procrastination, and it was all about how, I guess, people like your parents model lack of commitment or, procrastination with connection with their kids. And I get all that. I just don't know how to And I think that's kind of what happened because of my non-connection with my dad. How does that translate into not?
But I keep telling you, I keep telling you, and you keep asking me, how do I do this? Right. How do I get to San Francisco? Oh, you just take that street over there, go north 2 kilometers. Okay, fine. But how do I get to San Francisco? Well, that street that I mentioned is just okay, fine. But how do I get to San Francisco? Like, okay, so what are we not connecting on here?
I guess I need you to point to that street. I don't know.
No, I've already told you. Do you have any memory of me telling you what to do?
Um,
Oh, you're gonna love listening to this call back. Oh my God. Okay.
I don't. You mean just set real expectations? I don't
That's
remember.
good. That's good. I remember him saying something about that. Yeah, let's go with that. Let's load that up, fire it, and see if it hits. Okay. I'll throw this ball over the fence. Maybe I'll hit something. Okay. All right. So you don't remember, and it's okay.
I don't remember. I'm so sorry.
No, don't apologize. I mean, this is sort of this is what you're calling about, right? So you're demonstrating that we haven't had that. Okay, good. Well, I'm glad, right? Why are you so unemotional about your childhood?
I don't know.
Because it's probably why you did the drugs, right? Because you can't grieve. Sorrow is inconvenient. Sadness is unpleasant for a lot of people, and it would threaten the very fragile bonds that you had as a kid, right? Is it inconvenient to you? I mean, you had your mom died. I mean, a very sad childhood.
I don't have no memory of her. Literally,
Okay.
I have no.
But you know that your mom died, right? And the fact that you don't have any memory of her, yeah, you see, oh, this is so Russian, right? Oh, Eastern European, right? So you say, well, I have no memory of my mother, as if that means you're not supposed to be sad. But my father left when I was 6 months old or a couple of months old. I don't even remember him, but I still grew up without a father. You're trying to tell me because you don't remember your mother that you have nothing to grieve.
I remember being.
That's even more to grieve.
Yeah. I remember being sad and not knowing, never being prepared for like when my period was gonna come.
No, you are going back into mechanical story mode here.
I guess I don't know what what I'm supposed to grieve except for the fact that.
Did you not have a sad childhood? Everything you've telling me is heartbreaking.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it doesn't feel sad to me. It feels blank, which is, I guess, kind of sad when I think about it. So, like, what am I supposed to do about that?
What are you feeling now?
I'm tearing up a little bit.
Okay, so tell me. I'm here with you. I mean, I'm not criticizing.
I don't know. I just feel lost because I don't like. What am I supposed to?
No, don't disrespect your feelings by trying to anesthetize them with plans. Right? Well, what am I supposed to do with these feelings? No, they're not tools. They're not things to be used. You understand? They're you. They're your childhood. This is your life experience, Marina, right? So tell me what you're feeling.
I don't know. I'm crying and I feel emotional all of a sudden. I feel sad that something in my childhood just did not give me those skills that are now just making me be less than I can be, I guess. And everyone's telling me that I have so much potential, but then I just feel like a retard.
No, you're going back into your story mode. This is things you already told me.
I know.
So you're taking refuge from your feelings in your stories, right? So I was talking about that you had a sad childhood, and that's when you really started to feel sad, right?
Yeah. Right.
And you had isolation, neglect, loneliness, being bossed around, not being listened to, a succession of stepmothers, your mother not being there, and an all-male environment, right? Which is not the easiest thing for a woman to navigate, right?
Right.
No mentorship, no guidance from women, no connection.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I have a memory of a very, very few connections. Somebody posted, I can't find it now, but somebody posted on the YouTube channel. He said, I have a memory. He said, I'm in my 20s now. I have a memory once of talking with my father when he wasn't lecturing me or telling me to do something or asking me to get something or being upset with me about something. We were just having a conversation. It lasted about 20 to 25 seconds, and I was 8 years old. And I bet you that guy could remember where he was, what weather it was, how warm it was, what he was wearing. A 2-decade plus relationship with 20 to 25 seconds of relaxed conversation. And I remember, I mean, I wrote about these in my novel, The God of Atheists. I remember I remember being 2 or 3 years old and sitting with my brother. We were at a babysitter's because my mom was always trawling for the next man she could divorce. But we were at some babysitter's, and I guess my brother was 4 or 5, and he was explaining the solar system to me with fruit. And it was a beautiful night. I mean, I remember the moonlight coming in. I remember looking at the grape, which was the moon, and looking at the moon and looking back at the grape and realizing that the grape was the moon and then feeling like I had to hold on to the bed because the whole room, the whole house, the whole street, the whole city, the whole country, the whole world was spinning and moving and wondering why I wasn't dizzy. And I remember just this like literal flower, fast forward flower opening of wonder at the universe and feeling love for my brother, which was a wonderful time that we had that night. And I remember God, the next one, I don't know, I was a teenager. Like it was like 10 years later. There was a camp counselor who I couldn't sleep. I've always had been a light sleeper and I couldn't sleep. And I was chatting with him. There were no bugs, miraculously. We were looking up at the stars again, the solar system, the stars, the moon was out. And we were just talking in a relaxed manner, just back and forth. And I remember him telling me, everyone thinks that Frankenstein is the monster. No, Frankenstein was the doctor. Frankenstein was the creator of the monster, not the monster. I remember that because, of course, it was my bookmark for understanding my family when I got older. And I have just a couple of these, fewer than the stars in the night sky between two buildings, a few of these connections where easy conversations occurred, where minds were just shared with no sense of threat, no sense of obligation, no sense of rush, no sense of impatience, no sense of defenses or reactions or crap, just human to human connection, eyeball to eyeball contact without winks and blinks and sand in the sockets. And where were those in your childhood?
I didn't have any really.
I'm sorry?
I didn't have any of that. And yeah, that I can remember. I always
Right.
sought that, and the older I got, the more I sought that from. Uh, yeah, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I don't. And now I'm having this weird situation where my dad and my brother and I are. My dad and my brother are always fighting, and I'm always kind of the middle person, and I'm always the psychiatrist who has feelings.
No, 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 no. Don't give me your story. Don't give me your story time again.
I just
We just had over an hour of story time, and there's nothing wrong with the story time. I get it. It gets me the information.
I don't understand how to just feel and have that connection.
You know that your voice changes when you leap into this narrative mode, right? And you become faster. And I bet you a whole sense of self shifts from like your chest and your belly to somewhere up around your eyebrows, right?
Wow, that was amazing. Yeah.
Right? You
Actually,
leap into your head and you start giving me your foreign movie with subtitles to distract me from the hole in your heart. It's kind of the size of your heart, right? Okay, so let's go back to where you weren't on, right?
okay.
That was some lonely times, isolated times, unconnected times, adrift in space times, right?
Hmm.
Where you can barely see the world through the keyhole of loneliness, right?
Yeah. So I'm just supposed to feel that, and I guess
Now you going back to what to do, right?
I don't know. Yeah.
Yes, you are. You're going back to please save me from my feelings by giving me a plan, right?
Yeah. I just feel like time is ticking, and I'm just.
Oh no, yeah, because now it's like, oh my goodness, now I'm just being sad, and that's not convenient. This is somehow what, not supposed to be part of our conversation?
I don't.
No, this is what I'm having the conversation for, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird because that's exactly what I know happens is the emotion comes out, but for some reason I wanted you to give me a plan.
I know you want to give me a plan so you can shut your fucking emotions up and get busy, right?
Yeah.
No, but there is no plan other than identity. There is no plan other than the self. There is no plan other than connection, right?
Right. So I should really focus.
No, no. Oh my
Oh
goodness, you
God.
can't be trying that on me again. You are a relentless doer, right? Don't give me any kind of human being. I want to be human doing. Give me a project plan that doesn't involve me having emotions, right?
It's weird.
Right, but you
Not
feel that
really.
leap. You want to leap into doing something
Yeah.
in order to avoid feeling something, right?
I guess I feel like I wasted so much time
What do you mean?
being. I went through a long period of depression. When I was really hitting bottom with my. Yeah, I was doing pain pills and all kinds of. Anyway, I just feel like I wasted so much time. I just want to get my life back on track. And I mean, I guess it's not.
Oh no, no, no! You're leaping up to your eyebrows again, right?
Damn it.
Okay, stop, stop, stop. Do you think this? Look, oh my God, you're 34 years old, right?
Yeah.
Remember that, right? So if you feel like you've wasted time, it's because you haven't been emotionally connected, right? So now you are emotionally connected. And now you want to stop being emotionally connected because you feel you've wasted time, but the emotional connection is how you don't waste time.
Oh.
People who are playing World of Warcraft or doing drugs or doing something else, they're going to some sport, they look back and they say, I wasted time. I'm telling you, I have not looked back on a single conversation like this and said, I really should have been playing a video game. I really wasted time. Right? The connection is how time is held and magnified and cemented into a memorable and connected history. The disconnected time flies by, right? You look back at the disconnected time and you don't really remember much of it, which is why your childhood is so blurred to you, right?
Yeah.
The connectedness is how you don't waste time, how your life doesn't slip past you, right? You know, most people's lives, do you know what it's like? It's like they're in a bullet train and another bullet train goes by the opposite direction at 9 million miles an hour. Gone.
Yeah.
Because they weren't connected to themselves. They weren't connected to others. They didn't have the slowdown, the ballast, the anchor, the weight, the substance, the gravity of solidity. And solidity is connection with the self and with the other, with the truth of your experience. Not having plans, not having distractions, not having drugs, not having busy work, not having stress, not having worries, not connectedness.
Yeah. Actually, that's true.
Everything but connectedness is procrastination, and it is all designed to avoid connectedness. Because with connectedness comes the pain of realizing the disconnectedness, right?
Yeah. But my brain just keeps wanting to figure out how to change that. Oh, God.
Yeah, no, I get it. Your brain is like, oh, shit, what? Connectedness? Connectedness? Ah, right. Let's jump out of our skins. Let's go racing. I want to go dirt biking. Let's make some plans, right? Right. But if you are connected with yourself, you will have time for everything else in your life. If you are connected with yourself, you will be honest with your clients. If you are connected with yourself, you will be honest with the men in your life. You won't end up in situations where it's like I put out for cuddles or whatever, right?
I don't put out for cuddles, but I sometimes unintentionally let it happen more than just cuddles.
I'm just, I'm kidding. Right?
Yeah, I know.
But if you are connected with yourself, you won't be you'll be able to say no. You'll be able to take care of yourself better. You'll be able to take care of your clients better and your life better. And if you are connected, of course, you will have better conversations with friends. When you stay connected with friends or with lovers, with boyfriends or a boyfriend, then you will have the kind of feedback that keeps you from making mistakes. I mean, how much time did you waste on drug use? How much time do you waste on panic? How much time do you waste on anxiety? How much time do you waste on disconnectedness? The only way to catch time is to connect to others, because all that you will remember. Everything else is just a blur.
Yeah. You're right. Fuck.
Go on. Where did that come from? Fuck, I did waste some time not being connected, right?
I don't know what to do now.
Go on.
I guess I'm not supposed to know. I'm supposed to feel.
Not supposed to know why I didn't get what you said. What did you say?
I said I don't know what to do now, but are you
Good. 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 Stop doing shit. Stop doing stuff, right? How's that been working out? Being busy.
So how do I get connected more? I didn't mean for that to be a plan. I just
No, actually, that sounded less planny. That was, I guess, that was neither in the belly nor the eyebrows, somewhere around tit area, is my guess. So, but tell me what the sadness is first before I give you any thoughts about that, because I really want to make sure I know to the best I can where you are feeling right now.
it's weird. I can't even I can't put my finger on it. I guess I'm sad because I feel myself getting more sad before I guess less sad. Before I get I feel lost. I feel lost because I feel like no one in my life is really I have really deep connections with.
Right.
And the few people that I do have glimmers or part-time depth with, they revert back to the shallow end oftentimes, and I just feel like it's like a part-time connection, even with the people that there's any connection with at all.
Right. And you obviously, as you have in this conversation, you jump back a little too, right?
What do you mean?
Well, you keep so when you're connected, it's two equals, right? You can't have connection without equality,
Oh.
right? So where there is authority, there is not connection, and that doesn't mean authority is bad, whatever, right? But it just means that, right? So when we get connected, you and I, now forget about everyone else. When you and I get connected, Marina, the way that you recoil from that connection is to try and put me into a position of authority so that you can break our connection. So you say to me, Steph, what do I do? Which puts me in a situation or a position of